Hello, welcome back to Mysterious Case. In this episode, we revisit the case of Kyle Clifford, which took place in Ashlin Close. Ashlin Close is a quiet street located in Bushey, Hertfordshire, England, in the southeastern area of Watford. It is part of the small town of Bushey, known for its peaceful living environment, surrounded by fields and countryside, making it ideal for young families and those who want to be near London while still enjoying tranquility. This street falls within Bushey North in the Hertfordshire district and is managed by the Hertfordshire Council. This place reflects a blend of traditional English charm and modern life. The local residents value community, often organizing local events such as fairs and small festivals. The peacefulness and closeness to nature are defining traits, attracting those who appreciate a simple lifestyle. On July 9, 2024, British police received a call from Hannah Hunt. Her trembling voice came through the phone, pleading for help and saying her life was in danger. Immediately, the police traced her address to a house in Ashlin Close, Bushey, Hertfordshire, a small, peaceful town southeast of Watford, known for its ideal living space for young families and those who cherish the quiet of the countryside near London. When the first officers arrived, they found Hannah collapsed at the front door, a crossbow bolt lodged deep in her chest. Though still breathing, her breaths were faint, her life hanging by a thread. Moving further into the house, the police discovered two more bodies, two women, one of whom was Hannah's mother, Kyle Hunt, 61 years old, and the other her sister, Louise Hunt, 25 years old. Both had sustained fatal injuries. Louise had been shot with a crossbow bolt and had her hands and feet bound with tape, while Kyle bore multiple stab wounds, signs of a desperate struggle. Just minutes after the police arrived, Hannah passed away before their eyes, bringing the total number of victims to 3. The entire neighborhood was swiftly cordoned off, with dozens of armed officers deployed to search for the perpetrator. Based on screams heard earlier by neighbors and footage from doorbell cameras, the police documented a horrific attack. Initial investigations identified the suspect as Kyle Clifford, who had vanished from the scene without a trace. The Hunt family was a typical English family, living peacefully in their home on Ashlin Close. The family consisted of 5 members: Father John Hunt, Mother Kyle Hunt, and 3 sisters, Hannah, Louise, and Amy. John was a well-known figure in British sports, working as a racing commentator for the BBC with a captivating voice and professional demeanor. He was often away from home due to work, but remained the emotional cornerstone of the family.
On Manila Indo, but I am Maximus now! All power!
Carol, the 61-year-old mother, though not often mentioned, was always a steadfast support, wholeheartedly backing her children in their career journeys. Hannah, the eldest, was a skilled beautician, always busy with work at her salon. Louise, 25, the youngest daughter, was full of energy and passion. After working in the salon industry, she decided to shift gears and opened a pet grooming business called Groom and Glow right in the family's backyard. With professionally trained skills, including pet first aid, Louise quickly won over clients with her dedication and friendly personality. She often spent her free time hanging out with friends, working out at Bushey Grove Gym, and enjoying her youthful life. Amy, the other sister, was not at home on that fateful day, nor was John, who was away working. Before tragedy struck, the Hunt family was a picture of warmth and closeness, a family you could find in any small town in England. Everything changed when Louise met Kyle Clifford in 2022. Kyle Clifford was born on April 5, 1998, in Enfield, a small town north of London. Kyle's life was far from smooth from an early age. Growing up in a crowded family, 6 people squeezed into a 3-bedroom house, along with frequent moves, Kyle rarely had the chance to build lasting relationships. A turbulent childhood turned him into a rebellious child, often causing trouble at school and prone to uncontrollable anger and emotional outbursts. As an adult, Kyle joined the British Army, serving in the Queen's Dragoon Guards, a prestigious cavalry regiment. However, his military career was brief and marred by controversy. Fellow soldiers described Kyle as standoffish, displaying a dismissive attitude toward women and an obsession with violent videos. Despite his efforts, he barely passed basic training before leaving the Army in 2022. Whether voluntarily or discharged remains unclear. Afterward, Kyle returned to Enfield, working as a security guard for a private firm. There he continued to leave a negative impression, arrogant, hot-tempered, and quick to lose composure when things didn't go his way. In his personal life, Kyle was reclusive, with few friends, and increasingly consumed by toxic online content. He began following videos from extremist influencers who promoted misogynistic ideologies, further fueling his already unstable personality and making him more dangerous. He entered Louise Hunt's life in early 2023, marking the beginning of a toxic relationship. It all began in early 2023, when Louise Hunt and Kyle Clifford transitioned from friendship to romance. At first, Louise was drawn to Kyle's rugged exterior, which occasionally softened into gentleness, a side starkly different from the rebellious nature others typically saw in him. She believed she could change him, mold him into a better person. This was Louise's first serious relationship, and she poured a great deal of hope into it, despite warnings from family and friends. Louise's faith was quickly put to the test. Within a few months, Kyle revealed his true nature. He became controlling, forbidding Louise from wearing makeup or revealing clothes, claiming her allure was meant solely for him. His jealousy was excessive, flaring up whenever she left the house, even though they didn't live together. Worse still, Kyle grew increasingly engrossed in toxic online content, reinforcing his misogynistic views and fueling more frequent outbursts of anger. Louise, though deeply in love with Kyle, began to realize he wasn't the man she had dreamed of. By mid-2024, the relationship had reached a breaking point. Louise's family and friends relentlessly urged her to end it, but she hesitated. She feared losing the person she loved and facing the emptiness that might follow a breakup. Once, overwhelmed with emotion while thinking about Kyle, Louise even crashed her car into a pole due to distraction. But finally, on June 26, 2024, she made the decision to end it. Via text message, she gently broke things off, hoping they could part peacefully without resentment. After Louise Hunt sent the breakup text on June 26, 2024, Kyle Clifford initially responded calmly, thanking her for her clarity and saying he too would begin a healing journey. But that composure was only skin deep. Within hours, Kyle's mindset shifted entirely. He began messaging Louise incessantly, sending hundreds of desperate texts, begging her to take him back. When she didn't reply, his desperation swiftly turned to rage. He blamed Louise's family and friends, convinced they had manipulated her into leaving him. The sense of abandonment plunged Kyle into chaos. He believed that without Louise, his life had no meaning. From there, thoughts of revenge began to take root. Just 4 days after the breakup, on June 30th, Kyle went online to research methods for committing a crime. He purchased a crossbow and arrows for £357 and a sharp butcher knife for £89 from Amazon. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. The act of ordering and waiting for delivery showed he had carefully considered the plan and its consequences. Then on July 6th, Kyle was caught on camera at a hardware store, buying rope after deliberating carefully between a large coil or two smaller ones. Is this coil enough to tie her up? The next day, he went on to purchase silver duct tape and 2 fuel canisters, though he ultimately didn't use them. All these items served a single purpose: to kill Louise and anyone who stood in his way. In the final days before the crime, Kyle even wrote letters to his family and himself, expressing his despair and intent to end his own life after carrying out the act. His plan was set. Truly a madman. On July 9, 2024, in Bushey, John Hunt, Louise's father, was away from home, busy with his work as a racing commentator. Kyle Clifford knew this well. He had tracked John's work schedule online and even checked the weather forecast to ensure his plan wouldn't be disrupted. Around 1:37 p.m., Kyle parked his car a short distance from the Hunt residence, carefully observing to confirm John was gone. He then returned with a bag of Louise's clothes and a fake thank you card addressed to her parents. When Carol Hunt opened the door, she was surprised to see Kyle but didn't suspect anything. The bag of clothes and the card led her to believe he was there to make amends after the breakup. She invited him inside, unaware she had just let a monster through the door. The moment he crossed the threshold, Kyle's demeanor changed entirely. He pulled out a knife and stabbed Carol repeatedly in the knees, hands, back, and stomach until she collapsed. Then he stepped outside to retrieve the crossbow he had hidden nearby. At that moment, Louise was working in the backyard, completely unaware that Carol had been murdered. When she entered the house, Kyle attacked immediately. He used duct tape to bind her hands and feet, gagged her to stifle her cries for help, and brutalized her over a harrowing 2.5 hours. Hannah, her sister, arrived home shortly after, walking in as she did any other day, oblivious to the danger lurking inside. Upon spotting Kyle, she quickly texted her boyfriend, "Call the police now, he's tying us up." But before she could escape, Kyle shot a crossbow bolt through her chest. The lives of 3 people were extinguished. When Hannah Hunt was shot by Kyle Clifford with a crossbow on the afternoon of July 9th, 2024, she was gravely injured. With the little strength she had left, Hannah dragged herself across the floor, desperate to check on the other family members, her mother, Carol, and her sister, Louise, who already lay motionless in pools of blood. In agony and panic, Hannah called 999 at 4:47 p.m. Her voice was faint and faltering as she reported that she was about to die. Though the police arrived swiftly, they could only witness Hannah take her final breath at the doorstep. All 3 victims, Carol, Louise, and Hannah, suffered excruciating deaths. Carol, 61, bore multiple defensive stab wounds, evidence of her struggle before she fell. Louise, 25, was tightly bound and savagely beaten before being killed with a crossbow bolt. Hannah, too, couldn't escape Kyle's wrath. The bolt through her chest ended her life within minutes. The crime scene left even seasoned officers in shock, with many requiring psychological support to cope with the trauma. Kyle left the Hunt residence at 6:55 p.m. Neighboring security cameras captured him walking away calmly, hiding the crossbow under a white cloth, then driving off as if nothing had happened. His chilling composure sent shivers down spines. Meanwhile, the Hunt family was reduced to just John and Amy, the 2 fortunate enough to be absent, now left to grapple with the loss of their 3 most beloved members. A massive manhunt for Kyle began immediately afterward.
Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to.
After Kyle Clifford left the Hunt residence on the evening of July 9th, 2024, British police immediately launched a large-scale manhunt. With evidence from security cameras and statements from surviving Hunt family members, Kyle was quickly identified as the prime suspect. Armed police and specialized search teams were deployed across North London in the Bushey, Hertfordshire area. They warned the public that Kyle was carrying dangerous weapons, possibly a crossbow and knife, and urged people not to approach him if spotted, but to call 999 immediately. The search intensified on the morning of July 10th, when 10 officers with riot shields raided Kyle's home in Enfield, about 14 miles east of Bushey. There they discovered letters he had left for his family and himself. He even sent a letter to himself, good grief. In them, Kyle expressed his intent to end his life after committing the crime. This reinforced suspicions that he planned not only murder, but also suicide. However, Kyle was not at the house. By that afternoon, an anonymous tip reported he was hiding in Hillyfield Cemetery, just a few hundred meters from his home. Police swiftly surrounded the area, preparing to apprehend Kyle, But before they could take him into custody, Kyle turned the crossbow on himself, shooting a bolt into his chest in an attempt to take his own life. He didn't die. The arrow pierced his spinal cord, paralyzing him from the waist down and damaging his larynx, severely weakening his voice. Nearly 24 hours after the manhunt began, Kyle was found barely alive in the cemetery and rushed to Royal London Hospital under tight supervision. His escape plan had failed, leaving him with a permanently disabled body and a looming sentence hanging over his head.
Almost 24 hours after the manhunt started, this was the moment police found Kyle Clifford, stretchered out of a cemetery in Enfield in North London by police and paramedics. Safia lives opposite the family and watched last night as emergency services descended on the street.
We were all very anxious. We were on edge all night, unable to sleep until the very early hours of the morning because we're just seeing a flood of blue lights, helicopters, sirens everywhere. We were all very scared.
He, meanwhile, remains, we understand, at the Royal London Hospital after he was found with injuries as he was taken away from that cemetery in North London. The Home Secretary tonight has said that she is appalled and shocked, but ultimately everyone here is deeply disturbed at this horrifying tragedy that ultimately took the lives of these three women. Clifford is now being treated in hospital as a family tonight is broken after losing three of their dearest members. Ashlin, Sky News in Bushey.
After being found in critical condition at Hillyfield Cemetery on July 10th, 2024, Kyle Clifford underwent over 2 months of treatment at Royal London Hospital. The self-inflicted wound left severe consequences, requiring multiple surgeries. Nevertheless, he was under 24/7 police supervision, setting a record for the longest continuous guard period in the local force's history. By September 16th, Kyle was deemed fit enough for questioning, though his attitude during the process infuriated many.
Do you accept, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of three people?
No comment.
Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up Louise?
No comment.
From the moment that she sent you that text message at the end of June, you began to plan her murder? Yes?
No comment.
It's evident quite clearly from your purchase of the crossbow, from your purchase of the additional bolt, from the purchase of the gun and the knife in the 2 weeks leading up to the murders. Do you agree?
No comment.
Do you agree that it shows that you only had one thing in mind, and that planning began when you purchased these items? You purchased rope and you purchased duct tape in order to restrain Louise and Hannah and Carol, didn't you?
No comment.
6 days before this happened, you make these significant purchases that really only have one plausible explanation, didn't you?
No comment.
The only plausible explanation is that they were purchased in order for you to carry out these murders. Do you agree?
No comment.
The opening part of the note reads as such: "Please don't think of this as me throwing my life away. I have lived, and I am grateful for everything and everyone that has been a part of it. It is now my time to leave and be at peace, as this is what I ultimately want. I know you will all have so many questions and wish you could have done something different to prevent this. However, none of you have failed, and there is simply nothing any of you could have done. This is my decision to just be at peace." When you wrote that note, had you already planned the murders of Louise, Carol and Hannah? The next note is addressed to myself. "I don't want to live my life without her. I don't want to experience new things. Nothing I can think of can make me happy. I know I could have gone to therapy, found faith, and become a new, better person, but I just simply don't want to. I'm so sorry I didn't wait to move on and find my future wife, have the children I always wanted." What do you mean by that?
No comment.
It's a very self-centered note and doesn't take into account anybody else. Do you agree with that?
No comment.
Is your intention to make people feel sorry for you writing these letters?
No comment.
Look at your behaviour. Look how calmly and nonchalantly you walk away from that house. You've just killed 3 people and you stroll away like you're going down the shops.
During the interrogation, Kyle admitted his actions were reprehensible, but repeatedly denied any premeditated plan to kill the 3 women. Despite clear evidence, from purchasing the crossbow, knife, and rope to the letters he left behind, proving the crime was meticulously planned, he still tried to evade responsibility. Notably, Kyle denied the accusation of sexually assaulting Louise. At trial, Kyle refused to appear, even for the sentencing, revealing his cowardice. The prosecutor detailed his brutality, from deceiving Carol to gain entry, to torturing Louise for hours, to coldly shooting Hannah dead. The jury took just 45 minutes to convict him of sexually assaulting Louise, in addition to the murder charges he had already admitted. Kyle was sentenced to life imprisonment for each killing, Carol, Louise, and Hannah, with no possibility of parole. He also received an additional 20 years for the sexual assault of Louise, 8 years for unlawful detention, and 2 years for weapons possession. With a crippled body and a harsh sentence, Kyle's future is now confined to life behind bars. A fitting end. I find this guy ruthless yet remarkably foolish. He hid in a cemetery near his home, a place where anyone could easily spot him. The Kyle Clifford case was not only a nightmare for the Hunt family, but also a haunting ordeal for the Bushey community and the whole of England. When the verdict was delivered in late 2024, John Hunt and Amy, the 2 remaining family members, were left to face an unfillable void and irreparable pain. John, who once brought joy to millions of viewers with his racing commentary, now lives in silence, while Amy lost her mother and 2 sisters in a single fateful afternoon. The local community, accustomed to peace, was deeply shaken. Many couldn't sleep soundly, haunted by memories of helicopters and police cars roaring through that night. Kyle Clifford, now imprisoned with a paralyzed lower body and a feeble voice, is a product of his own selfishness and cruelty. The judge, in delivering the sentence, described him as a man consumed by self-pity and contempt for women. The life sentence with no parole, plus an additional 30 years, ensures he will never walk free. Yet for many, this punishment still falls short of compensating for the 3 lives lost and the anguish of those left behind. The case also carries profound lessons. It serves as a reminder of the importance of recognizing and intervening when a relationship turns toxic. Louise's family and friends had long been concerned, but no one could have foreseen Kyle's descent into such extremes. It also raises questions about the regulation of weapons like crossbows, which he easily purchased online, and the impact of toxic online content on the human psyche. Though Kyle's story ends behind bars, the wounds he inflicted remain, a persistent warning to us all. In closing, we extend our deepest condolences to John's family. We share in their grief over this loss. What do you think of this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. If you appreciate how we present these cases, please consider supporting us with a like or a subscription. It's a huge motivation for us to keep growing and delivering better quality content. Thank you, and see you next time.